Welcome to Stay Fearless, the FSP podcast with all things baseball performance. I am your co-host and co-founder of Fearless Sports Performance, Joey Hanley.
And I'm your co-host and co-founder, Dr. Alex Acevedo, and welcome to another episode of the pod. All right, everybody, we are back at it with another episode of Stay Fearless, the Fearless Sports Performance podcast. Today, we are joined by Brenden Taravella. Brenden is a former Fearless athlete who pitched at Loyola University New Orleans. He is a member of our 90-mile-per-hour club and holds many places in the Loyola University New Orleans records book, including first in strikeouts per 9 innings single season, third in strikeouts all time, third in saves all time, third in saves single season, sixth in ERA all time, eighth in wins all time, ninth in innings pitched all time, and 10th in ERA single season. Brenden is a fierce competitor, a relentless worker, and an incredible human being. Brenden, I'm really excited to have you on the pod and share your insights with our listeners.
Thank you for the kind words. I am very happy to be here. Very happy.
It's good to have you, man. That's quite the list of achievements right there.
Yeah.
You're written all over the Loyola record book, and rightly so, man. You worked your butt off. You did a lot of really cool stuff there. And
thank you.
You know, for those of the people listening who have not watched Brenden pitch, he was pretty gross. He had some pretty disgusting stuff. So it was fun to be a part of, and it was great to be his teammate.
Thank you
for those years.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
For sure, man. So, kind of want to jump into you have a pretty incredible story where you chose Loyola knowing that it wasn't the best program, but you saw a vision of where it could go, and ultimately we were able to bring it there, and even further than kind of what we thought we could get it to by the time we left. So kind of take us through that whole journey and what your thoughts were and all of that.
So my thought process when the coach first reached out to me, I was actually a junior in high school, and what he told me was, you could pitch for me right now. And my thought process, even as a junior in high school, was that shouldn't be true. But it turns out that it actually was true. So we kind of got together a lot of the other kind of, guys, like some of the better guys at some of the New Orleans, the local high schools, and had kind of decided, like, messaging Twitter or like texting at the time. And we were like, what if we all just went here? Because it was more so like the decision of, like everybody wants to play Division I baseball. It's like, do I really want to go? Because obviously talent is a limiting factor, just being realistic. But it's like, do I really want to go play a Division I in some no-name school in the middle of nowhere? Like, what's that worth? So we would rather just stay here because unfortunately, the talent in Louisiana is very top heavy. So you have your Tulane, or you have LSU, obviously, you have your UL, your Tulane, and UNL. So it's really, if you're not at that kind of top upper echelon of a college player, you're really looking at BRCC, Loyola, or Delgado. So we were kind of like, we want to stay here. We don't want to go too far. But we're kind of all in the same thought process. It's like, if we all kind of go here, like we can maybe change the culture. Because at the time, the culture was really one of like, baseball was almost an afterthought. It was more so like, we're here to get our degree. Like, we have doctors and future doctors, future lawyers. Yes, and a party, obviously. At that time, it
was bad, man.
Being in the world. So it was, we're the doctors, we're the future lawyers. Like, they can outscore us by 40 pounds in a weekend. Like, we're gonna be doctors. And that was kind of the thought process behind the whole culture. Yeah. And that was when we were kind of looking to change and say, that's fine that, we go to a small, smart school, but why can't we also compete? Like, there's really nothing stopping us. So just kind of changing that whole narrative was, even like when we were young, is kind of where we were
at. Yeah. That was pretty awesome, man. Cause, when I remember, and I've talked about it before, and we've talked about it before, when I got to Loyola, my class was probably the first class where we had a decent group of us that really wanted to change the culture and kind of saw something bigger than what we were coming to. And, but it wasn't everybody, right? It was probably maybe like half of us or a little bit less than half of us that really wanted to make changes, maybe a handful, if that, but at least there were some guys that wanted to make a change. And right. I remember your class coming in was probably the first class that pretty much everybody was like,
Everybody was on
"Oh,
board for the most
we're
part.
not gonna, yeah, we're not gonna keep doing this. We're not gonna lose. We're not gonna stand for this. We're gonna change something." And I remember getting to Loyola, and I think we had a loss after some team, and I was pissed. And I said something like, "Man, we're better than this. Like, we can be better than this. Like, we have to change what's going on, the mindset, whatever." Said something to that degree. And I remember one of the seniors stopping and telling me, like, "Dude, this is Loyola. We don't win here. Like,
Right.
nothing's going to change. It will be the same way all 4 years, and you're going to waste your baseball career. Stop trying to win. Like, don't let it bother you." And that bothered me even more because I was like, "Dude,
Yeah.
what? Like, really? You're just going to give up on that?"
Yeah.
And seeing your class come in right after my freshman year, I felt like it would have been, if you guys didn't come in with the mindset you guys did, it would have been really easy for me to be like, "Man, maybe that's true," and just kind of like started to give up a little bit, like
Phone it in.
guys in the
And you
past have
end up,
done.
yeah,
Yeah,
you
and
just
you
phone it
guys
in.
coming in and just having a lot of guys with a great mindset, but also a lot of talent. Like, there was a lot of talent in your class. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of guys. And seeing that, I think, gave me a little hope. Like, okay, and I felt like I really resonated with your class, and I was glad that I got to come back at that fifth year and graduate
Yeah.
with a bit of you guys, because it felt more fitting. Where I felt like I connected with your class a lot, and like
Yeah.
you
That
guys
last
came
year
with
was
a
great.
mindset of,
It was a competitive year. It was, yeah.
exactly, exactly. And then we got to be there at the end, and not only did we change the culture around, but it was one of the most historic, turnarounds in
Absolutely.
NAIA history, where from one year to the next, we went from one of the worst programs in the country to, we're top 10 in the country. So
Yep.
that was really fun to be a part of, and really cool to be a part of that culture shift, because obviously a big part of it was culture. And
Huge. It was, I mean, that's the main part. And it really, and it didn't happen overnight. One specific coaching change or a couple players being changed around was really, it was a slow process, that I am not proud to say, but I acknowledge now that I'm out, that I was not as bought in as I could have been. I was more, that's the thing, and that we can get into later. But there's talking a big game, and then there's backing it up with kind of the sweat equity. And that is kind of where the change really shifted when K came, is it went from let's talk a big game and be upset when we lose, to let's talk a big game and back it
play a
up
big
with
game. Yeah,
extremely hard effort, with hard effort and sweat, and
competitive
just putting the
spirit.
time in and being competitive and really and showing it on the field, but also in the weight room and eating. It's like
And
it
everything.
eventually
Yeah.
culminated to where when we were on our way out, really, like my last year, where it was like the culture was completely gone, and it was really where this was an expectation, where being ranked 15th or 12th or 14th was the expectation. Like
Yeah, we're Loyola.
we
That's
were
what we
shooting
do.
for higher at that point. So that's kind of where it wasn't like an overnight, like, oh, we have a new coach, so like now
Now
top
we're
12 team.
good. Yeah.
It was more so like a very slow and gradual of like this guy came here. So it's
Yeah.
like for example, like when we got like Wes, like that was a big
That's a
thing
big
for
step.
me,
Yeah.
where it was like, and I told Wes this after the last games. I was like, if you had never came, like I would not be half as good as I am right now. Like I wouldn't have. This was the day that I hit. Well, this was at LSUS, where coming back on a 1 day rest, I got up to 89. I was like, I would never have been here, because what guys coming and getting a chip on my shoulder, that changes culture. Being selfish as far as what you want your development to be, to say, no, I want to be a starter. Like I want to play. Like I'm not like I'm happy that
I
the
don't want
team's
to just
winning,
be,
but I
yeah,
want to
another
play. Like
guy.
I want to be the
Yeah.
guy. And it's
And
like when a guy comes in and challenges you, that
mhm,
it forces you to change, because two
yeah.
things are going to happen. You're either going to get booted out or you're going to be forced to change. And
Yeah.
that's kind of my big thing. Is like when I've been talking to some of the guys at Loyola right now, is it's like you are either going to adapt to the culture, or it's going to chew you up and spit you up, and
Yeah.
you're not going to play, and
Yeah.
you're going to end up quitting, or you're going to get cut. So it's like everyone's moving in the same direction. Like because there might be some guys that are that are dissenting. Like they're like,
Yeah.
whatever, like do with this, or like I'm good for this, but like I'm
Yeah.
not putting in the work, or like half-assed at the gym. And it's like the culture now, like that is going to show. It's going to be
Yeah.
evident. So the
You
cult, it
can't
just
be
flipped.
lackadaisical anymore. Yeah.
Not
You
anymore.
have to.
No, not
Yeah.
anymore. And it's evident. Like, guys that don't put in the effort that they should don't play. Like
Yeah.
when I was a freshman and sophomore, like there were guys that were pitching that should not have been playing college baseball. So it's like
Yeah, and
it's
it was
huge
tough
shift.
because you didn't have, and it's a healthy competition, right? Like it's not an unhealthy
Right.
competition within the team, but it's a healthy competition within the team where everybody's pushing each other up, right? The waters rise,
Absolutely.
so all ships rise as well, right?
Absolutely.
When that competition, when you have that healthy competition and you have good players and good talent and everybody working and competing with each other for a job, everything starts to fall in place. Everybody starts to get better. When you don't have that and you're in a mindset, which is kind of where we were at, where it didn't matter how good or bad you were, how much you worked or whatever, you still probably had a good chance at playing because there
Yeah.
wasn't enough talent
It
to
didn't
get you
matter.
off
It
the
didn't
starting
matter what you
rotation or
did
whatever.
or how you
Yeah,
played. You had to play. So
exactly.
it
And
just
it
a
was, it
lot
just
of
wasn't,
yeah.
yeah, it wasn't good. It wasn't good.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
And
look where we and they are now. It
yeah,
all worked
yeah.
out in the end. And it didn't
Yeah.
take that long if you think about it. It didn't take that many
No,
years.
no. And I think so you kind of alluded to the fact that it didn't happen overnight. And I think for someone seeing it from the outside, they could see where it almost looks like it did, right? It happened from one year to the next. It was probably one of the fastest, if not the fastest program turnarounds in NAIA
Yep.
history, year to year. But it didn't happen again from one day to the next. It wasn't just coach came in, everything changed, we were better all of a sudden. I think
Yep.
it started with your class coming in and everybody being like, all right, no, this isn't what we want. And then slowly more guys started to kind of wake up and come to hey man, we can compete, we can be better than this. And
Yep.
then, my junior year, your sophomore year, I think everybody was on the same page finally. It was like, all right, something needs to change.
There was a
Coaching
serious change
staff
that needed
isn't,
to be
yeah.
made, that we
And
were being handicapped by things that were
coaching staff,
outside of control, things that were
exactly.
outside of our. So it really, and luckily for us, the sports administration felt the exact same way. So it
Exactly.
all worked out.
Exactly.
It all worked out, and everybody was on the same page. And really, after that was happily ever after. And I mean, just to
Yeah.
show you, like, kind of how serious our class was. I remember, like, the K, and he was already picked at this point. This was really just Simpson being nice to us. I mean, we had like 7 guys, like, interview K. Like, we were like, this is what we want to do. Like, these are the problems that we had. It's like basically it was an A to Z of like, this is what we think. And he was like, yeah. And he kind of, we were like, we're happy with this. We're good to go. He
Yeah.
was already excited at that point. But that
Yeah.
just shows you like kind of where we were, where it's like we were respected enough to where we were given that opportunity.
Exactly.
And that
Exactly.
just shows you where it's like it wasn't one guy or a couple guys. It was the entire
Yeah.
program all the way
Everybody was on
from
board.
administration to the players. It just came together.
Yeah.
It really
Yeah. Everybody was pulling in the right direction. And I think maybe there were a few kind of bad apples in there
But like
going
I said,
into
they were
that
chewed
year.
up and
And
spit out. They
yeah,
weren't playing.
exactly. It
That's
was
it.
quickly weeded out. Guys quickly, either left or they changed their attitude and kind of came around. And I think that the way everything was handled very well, where everybody was kind of brought to a place where everyone was kind of pulling in the right direction early on.
Yeah.
And even then, from the beginning of the fall, like there was a lot of kind of growing that we all needed to do. We all had to learn
Everyone needed to do a little
how to be good. I think we had a lot of talent going into that year. And it wasn't much different from the year before, but we just had a lot of talent on that team. And I think part of that fall and early spring or throughout the spring was a lot of like learning that we were good and believing it, earning our own respect before we could
Yep.
earn the respect of others. And that was I think that was a huge part of our culture shift and why we did so well. From the beginning that K came in, it was like, you guys are good. You guys can do it, but we
Can
got
be
to
good.
earn our own respect first. You guys got to
Yeah.
believe that you can do it.
Well, that first year it was really just like adding a couple puzzle pieces and changing the mindset. And that the COVID year, even that was a complete just 180 as far as feel of the year. Like there was no more like us going and getting outscored by 30. Like it was like every series was competitive. Even if we lost or got swept, it was like we belong here. Like it
Yeah, we
didn't
earned
feel like we
respect.
belonged there my freshman and sophomore year. So even that first like quarter season or half season or whatever for COVID, like it had already changed just from adding a few guys and having a competitive mindset.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
and it just
yeah,
it came a long way as far as with the culture. I think that kind of pulled the physical aspect of it as well, like guys wanting to get better, guys. Like I mean, even look at like I'm gonna give a shout out to my boy. Even look at Mad Brat. Like I don't know if you remember how hard he worked that last year. Oh, you weren't there. His last year,
well, I
he
was
worked
training him at the time actually, so
he
I
worked
remember that.
harder than anyone I've ever seen.
Yeah,
Like just that, and he didn't even really play that much. That just shows you at every. It was like you had guys that were like, "I'm so hungry to play." Like it's great that the team's winning. I love the fact that we're winning, but I want to be the reason I'm hungry.
I want to be
You
part
know,
of it.
and
I
that
want to be
just
part of
shows
it.
you that it was top down. It was top
Yeah,
down.
yeah, and
Guys
it
that
was a
weren't
healthy.
playing were hungry.
Yeah, that and that competition within the team was so healthy because I felt like as a team, our culture was such a close knit culture.
Yeah.
There was no, it wasn't an unhealthy competitiveness. It was very much like a healthy, like, I want to be part of this. I want to play. I'm going to work my butt off. I'm going to earn a job. But nobody was hoping that somebody else would do poorly.
No,
It
no,
was just
no
like, I want to lift
negative
this team
competition.
up and I want to, yeah,
Absolutely. No
I want to be
negative
able to
competition.
contribute and be a piece that can make this team even better
Absolutely.
than it already is.
I
Yeah.
want to be basically, I want to raise myself up to where I belong. I belong in that number of the guys that contribute. And that's a huge thing too. Where it was like prior to that, it was like you got your guys that are pretty good, like, and then everybody else. So it's like if he's not on the mound or he's not hitting, it's like what's even the point? Like what are we doing here? So, but it just completely changed everything.
Yeah,
Really.
yeah. From top to bottom, I think that that squad became a very deep squad. When in the past it was like the total opposite, and guys, their heads weren't even in it. Guys were showing up to games, they weren't ready to play. It was just, it was not a winning culture, and I think the way that our mindset shifted, made a big difference. And I think one of the big stark differences that I kind of reflected on over time, between those two cultures that we experienced was a lack of commitment to player development and then like a full commitment to player development that Kay kind of brought in from day one and Bruce. So what do you have to say about the importance of prioritizing player development and choose, and then also, and we can talk about this after, but like choosing a school for guys that are looking at schools that are going to prioritize their player development.
So I think that there's a bunch of different type of players, but talking from my personal experience, because that's what I can firsthand talk about, is basically your two major types of players are your ones that don't need to be pushed and your ones that need to be pushed and your ones that need guns. So as you have your two sets of players here, your ones that need to be pushed, if they are not pushed, it is going to be a really bad time. And I know you say like, duh, like obviously, like, but that's kind of the thing is, and even for me personally, I was in the second group. I needed to be pushed. I needed big time. Um, when you're not pushed and you need to be, you get complacent and the team suffers from it. So your guys that are pushing themselves, your guys that are self-motivators are suffering as well because the culture around them is of people that need to be pushed because that's kind of the culture that they're in. So the player development on that aspect is, to me personally, it has to come from within. It has to come from within. You can have, I think, you can have the best culture ever. You can have the best training ever. Your coaches can be fantastic. But the thing that you can really get is like I had, like even when Bruce and Kay got there my junior year, the gains didn't show until it was in here, until I won. So getting players, and I know like you can't, whatever the saying is, you can't like teach art or anything like that. I don't think that's true. I think that you just have to find a way to get to guys. You have to find a way to get guys to understand what it was for me. I finally got knocked down. Like I had a bad year. My junior year was rough. Like guys like Wes came in threw really well. And I saw the writing on the wall. I was like, I have to get better. So to me, that's what it was. Like I had to see that what I was doing wasn't enough. Like it might have been enough for Loyola, it might have been enough for teams that were very bad, but it wasn't enough for where we want to go. So I think that player development, basically, as I said, it was very nice to have Kay and Bruce come in and be kind of a little bit more pro player development instead of the old culture, which was non-existent.
Mhm.
But I really think that the biggest thing that really paid dividends was the fact that guys wanted internally to get better. Where it was like, I'm not like, yes, I'm going to ask coaches for help and I'm going to receive help when I'm given it, but I'm also going to go on YouTube. I'm also going to go to
Yeah,
outside
figure it out
coaches. I'm also
myself.
going to I'm also going to reach out to this and do this. So it was like what I'm doing now, and from my personal experience of what I'm doing now is that other guys kind of obviously sure feel different, but that was kind of the thing where it was like it had to come from here, and other guys had that. I did not have that till later in my career. Um, but that's a big thing that I think a lot of guys got is they felt it in their heart. Their heart was in it. And I think that that's, as we've just talked about for a while, the culture. So it's like as important as it is to have coaches that are pushing you in the right direction, the change of heart really was the biggest thing that
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
is that
And
there
it
were
was
guys
all of us. It's a team effort. Yeah.
that were hungry and that showed they were in the weight room. I'm telling you, Matthew Bratton, shout out, he was so hungry, and I saw it every day because we trained a lot together, and I was like, this guy should be throwing 90 plus. Like I was like, he should be a ball, and it was, and we would go, and it didn't work out that way, but the work ethic
He
was
pulled some stuff out of himself that nobody ever thought he'd be able to pull.
exactly
Yeah.
the work ethic that he had, and that's just one example. That's just one guy, but there were many guys that were like that. But I'm just saying he want to
Yeah.
give a shout out to him because it was turned up to 100. But that's just an example of a guy that was not the ace. It's not like Kay went to him and it's like, hey, you were our ace last year, but you got to do better. He was not playing. So it was just like, I want to be part of that. So getting that kind of internal desire for player to like to develop himself is where I think all the success came from, really.
Yeah. 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 And I think it
Which
was
was which was perpetuated by top down. That's a little bit of a top down where it's like your coaches have to kind of put that off your top players like Peyton Alexander, Allen. I mean, like Peyton had like a
trickle down.
700 average against me in scrimmages. Like that ate me up. And he would tell me, or like he would tell me what he saw on pitches, and that ate me up so bad. But I got so much better because of it. So having guys like Peyton Alexander on the team, like that's how you get coaching is very important, but having it be top down, I think equally or more.
Definitely. Definitely. I feel like, yeah, 100%. There's a couple kind of facets to it. It's like you have to foster the culture, create the culture. That's everybody. It's not just the coaching staff. It's the
Yeah,
whole culture coming from everybody. And is everybody
right.
pushing each other to be better? Is there internal competition? And then it's how do you as an individual respond to that? And
Absolutely.
that's kind of where a lot of that player development comes from.
Because coaching to a brick wall, it's like it
Yeah, it
doesn't
doesn't do
do as
anything for
much
you.
as where it's like I'm hungry, like I'm inquisitive. Like even if because I mean nobody knows everything. Even if I exhaust your knowledge or it's like I have an issue that you can't help me with, I'm gonna go to another coach or I'm gonna to another training program. It's like because I'm hungry because I want to be good. So and I think that that's a huge thing that changed with myself and with a lot of guys that was just changed by everyone.
Yeah.
And you could feel it. Like you could feel it that and I don't mean like I don't even mean this like superfluously. Like guys were doing like med balls and stuff. And like I didn't mean that like, oh my God, that's so cool that they're doing that. It was like guys had their own programs. Not that you need to do med balls or you need to do weighted balls, but it's like the fact that guys were putting in the research and putting in the time to say, like or like this is my specific problem, so what can I do to fix that? Like it used to
Yeah.
be you and Larry. Then it was every
Yeah.
everyone was doing it. everyone was saying, I have my problems are X, Y, Z. It's like, what drills can I do to kind of
Yeah.
fix
What
that?
routine can I
Guys coming to
build? Yeah.
me, like, I don't know. So we went to Bruce, or we would go to YouTube, and it's like that's kind of what it was, just being hungry to kind of
Yeah.
do whatever you can to get better.
Yeah. Yeah. And building an individualized routine that worked for you as an individual. And I think that was another thing too that was so great is like, and a lot of programs don't have this. It's like that individualization was so encouraged and fostered in those later years, where it was really easy to be able to say like, okay, this is what I got to work on. I need to build a routine that's individual for me, and then breaking away from the pack and kind of doing your own thing in a way that was accepted. It worked in the flow of our practices and games and
Yep,
everything. The coaches were part of it, and kind of guiding it.
very
The
supportive of it.
players were working together to
I
help each
mean,
other
Kay
out. Yeah.
constantly told me, like, or not constantly, but Kay told me a bunch of times, like, it's evident that you put a bunch of work in. And like I said, when I was younger, I was not a self-starter. I did not have the fire later in my career. So when we kind of got together, I fell in love with with training, with getting better, with putting in my sweat and sweat equity, just working hard. When I started the Fearless program, it's like I fell in love with it. Like I lift 6 times a week, like every day. Like I fell in love with it. So that's kind of like where it all kind of came together. Like because with COVID, like when I kind of we can get into that later, but it's like just as an example, kind of starting Fearless, it's just like it changed everything for me because and not to say that Fearless is your fix all, you're going to throw 95 from that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying just the fact that you have a personalized program, you have coaches that care about you, and you have someone that you can say, "Hey, Alex, can you look at this video? I'm feeling X, Y, Z," and you get a response. It's not like you're sending out an official Google Doc for one of five coaches to look at and leave notes on. It's the fact that it's a personal experience that you can say, "Hey, like I kind of felt this in my bullpen. Like here's a video," and it's just like that back and forth, that brainstorming. Like it was addicting. Like I fell in love with it, and I still do it to this day. So that was definitely something that Fearless gave me that I still use, and that was a huge, huge help for me to kind of find my way to be like fall in love with development. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I appreciate you saying that about the program and kind of what we were able to do for you. But I also want to make it clear to everybody listening, and to you as well. It goes both ways, right? And so like you were an athlete that I loved working with, because you were putting just as much work in, if not more, than the work I was putting in. And so it made me want to work even harder for you, because I knew that you were putting everything into it and like really, really going balls to the wall, all in.
Absolutely.
Which makes it easy, right? Because I've had athletes in the past that don't put as much work in, and I'm like having to like essentially pester them to
Yeah,
get their work in or do things right or get back to me and talk to me, have conversations, and it makes it really hard to get better that way. Um,
absolutely.
and we try our best to keep our culture a culture of guys like yourself, and guys that aren't fully in it. We typically don't keep in the program, or they don't
Yeah.
stay themselves, because it's
Well,
not
just like
only
we were
not
saying
fair to
earlier, it's
them.
like if you're not going to put in the effort,
Yeah,
you're going to get spit out. It's just that's just how
exactly.
the
And
beast works.
yeah, and not only is it not fair to them, but it's also not fair, and this applies to the team setting too, to the other athletes around them that they're training next to,
Absolutely.
training with, taking time from. And so one of the things I really appreciated about you is like you were very, very committed to learning, not just following. And so we had a lot of really awesome in-depth conversations along the way of
Absolutely. I fell in
why
love
are
with
we
it, and
doing
that's
what we're
fell
doing?
in love.
What are we seeing?
Absolutely. I absolutely fell in love with it. And that's what I was saying. And I think that now that I'm transitioning to the other side of baseball, the not playing side of baseball, coaching side of baseball, and kind of more that I think about it and probe guys' brains and kind of figuring out how pitchers work, because pitchers are weird creatures. They really are. And it's just you have like everyone is different. Like I'm sure you can fit a lot of guys in different boxes, but it's like finding what lights the fire in somebody is, I think, very important because I did not have the fire. I was cruising through high school, like because I mean, New Orleans is competitive baseball, high school, but it's not a very high level baseball, if that makes sense. It is a very competitive level of baseball, but it is not your Texas, your
It's
Florida,
near
your
Los
California.
Angeles, you know.
It's not, but it is very competitive. So I was able to kind of cruise through high school, throwing 76 from the side, and that was fun and had ridiculous ERA and a ridiculous win loss, but none of that mattered because when we started playing for real competition, we got destroyed. So, and that's what it took for me is I literally just to show you how neurotic I don't know, you're not gonna, but basically, I uh, I blew a save against it's either Blue Mountain. I blew a save against Blue Mountain, or I blew a save against one of the two. And I literally, on my way home, I set a voice reminder. I said, "Remind me in 1 year to remember how it felt to blow the save against, I think it was Blue Mountain," because I was like, I'm gonna hold myself accountable. I was so I hate to use this word, it's such a strong word. I was so disgusted with kind of what like the potential and the time I had wasted that it's like it was literally a match made in heaven, like when we kind of got together because it was like I'm very hungry and I am willing to put in as much work as possible. I was going to Loyola every single day. I was doing med ball training. I was doing my weighted balls. And you were like very responsive to all of my weirdness and my questions, my hundreds. So it was just kind of like it was a match made in heaven. So it really
Yeah,
it
man.
worked out.
Yeah, and I loved it too because I was the same way, man. I always wanted to know why. I always wanted to like really get to the end of it. And you know how I am. I'm a very obsessive, kind of OCD-esque
What?
person. And so like when my mind is on something and I'm trying to get better and I have a goal in mind, I'm gonna go full throttle into it, right? And that's how I treat my
Yeah.
athletes as well. That's how we worked on it. And it was great because you had the same mindset of like, all right, this is our goal and we're gonna go full throttle. It was
Yeah.
great to be a part of, and I loved it. And it's easy to train guys like that, man. But ultimately, we had a lot pay off in that offseason. And next year we had a great year. Broke the 90-mile-per-hour barrier,
Yep.
and absolutely shoved all year. And so I want to talk about that journey for you and what made you successful, what worked, what didn't work, and what did you learn about your body and your training routine throughout that whole process?
How much time you got? I
Get
I could
after
go
it,
on
man.
for a few weeks.
Let's do it.
But basically to give you the too long didn't read version. Um Basically I was allergic to the gym when I was a freshman, sophomore, and junior. I was allergic to it. I hated it. We also, again, getting back to culture, are the lifts when we were freshmen and sophomore. So when I was a freshman, sophomore, were hard. So it's like that was what I had to go off of. So it was really that like the extent of my coaching had been me and my dad in the backyard because I had like a makeshift like bullpen. That was the extent of my coaching. So on my baseball side, it was me and my dad basically messing around in the backyard. Was everything I had figured out. Weightlifting side, non-existent. I still thought that the way to throw harder is you have a weird ligament in your shoulder that makes your arm go faster. That is literally the level we were at till I was 19. So that just to give you an idea. So it was to give you the shortened version. Over the course of about a year and a half, a copious amount of learning, literally inhaling information from uh, guys like Trevor Bauer's YouTube page, like where guys were just like basically giving unfiltered thoughts about pitching, which it doesn't happen a lot. Of just like this is why I do what I do. Like even about little stuff that it's like on my days that I throw, like I do this, and it was like I had never heard someone talk kind of that casual about what they do. It's like the only way to really look at pro guys is to watch them on TV or to watch them on YouTube, like slow-mo video. I was doing a lot of that, but to have a guy like Bauer and a couple other guys like Michael Lorenzen's
Talking
one of
about the
them,
routine, yeah.
talk
Yeah.
about their
That's great.
routine, talk about their mentality, talk about what they thought about after, what they thought about the day before when they were watching, when they were rewatching. It's like just inhaling all that information, working at Loyola Gym, because that's what I did. I sat there on my phone watching Michael Lorenzen, Trevor Bauer, drive line. Oh my God, the drive line. Just stuff like that. And just inhaling information. So that was step one. Developing a plan, inhaling information, and getting together with you. That's all step one, kind of getting this ready to go. Then it was me getting after it in the gym for my first time. I remember I texted Larry Frischberg, also shout out to my boy Larry. I texted him. I had some pre-workout and I had a ridiculous, the first fearless lift. And I said, this felt effing amazing. I was like, I have never felt as good as I do right now. Could have been the 250 milligrams of caffeine talking, but it just felt so good to absolutely get after it in the gym, and to work towards a goal. And I got addicted. I absolutely fell in love. And I have not stopped for 2 years or 3 years now. But kind of to have that real grind where it was like you're leaving the gym and you're like, I just put in a lot of work. Like I feel that. Like it doesn't feel like I just went and did a chore. That's what lifting used to feel like at our old lifts, where it was like
Yeah.
it was such a
Like,
sham.
why am I here?
Why am I
It's not a
here? It was
clear
literally like I
goal.
should be
We're not
sleeping
working
right
towards
now, or I could be doing homework, I could be doing anything else. This was like there is literally one place on earth I want to be right now. It's in this gym. And
it.
I've still carried that over to this day. But at
Yeah.
that point, it was like, oh, I can't do this. I gotta go. I gotta go lift. I gotta go lift and throw. Or I'll do it later. I gotta go lift. Or we can hang out tomorrow. Gotta lift and throw. It just I became neurotic about it, and that's step two. And that's not everybody. I would not recommend everyone to do that because it's not
Yeah,
healthy for the
there's a
most part.
balance, obviously. You don't
If it
want
doesn't
to
work out, if it
overdo it
doesn't
and
work
make
out, it's
yourself
very unhealthy.
crazy. But you
Right.
definitely need to
But I
prioritize
became
your career.
neurotic about it to where it was like it was all I thought about for 8 months straight was like, I'm gonna throw a baseball and a radar gun is gonna tell me that it went 90 miles an hour, and anything else is fine. Anything else that happens is fine. So kind of I became neurotic about my goal to the point of obsession. And I would not recommend that to everyone, but what I would recommend is to set goals that maybe you think are unrealistic. Now, do I think 102 is a goal I should have set? No. Do I think 95 is even a goal I should have set? No. But at my current point, I was topping out at 81. 90 was a very unrealistic goal to me at the time. I'd never stepped a foot in the weight room seriously on my own volition. I never wanted to do it myself. And I had never put in real training, like with weighted balls, with med balls, with any of that. So it was literally like I flipped the switch and I completely went balls for a year or really 8 months straight of just nonstop grinding. And what that did, what I think was even more or at least equally as important as the physical transformation, was that this was just my head was completely transformed. And the way that I train, the way that I throw, every time, and this is Bruce, basically Bruce is very largely to blame for to not blame
A
in a good
tribute
way,
to, yeah.
attribute to this. Every throw I made, Matt, I wasn't throwing just for fun. It was like, and this again kind of verged on neurotic. So watch this. So I wouldn't go too crazy. But every throw was like, how did that feel? It's like I kind of cut that, or like, or like I kind of, like really my arm should have been here, or my arm's kind of low at foot plant. And it kind of got to the point where it was like everything I did was to get to that 90 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Every time I rolled out, every throw I made, every bullpen I did, every time I did arm care, everything I did was to kind of get to that goal. So
Mhm.
it was just more so like I say neurotic because that's how it was, but it's more so like having the fire to get better and having a very well structured and good plan. Because there are guys that wake up, they go out, they slip on some Crocs, and they throw 95. They absolutely exist and they are real and they exist. But there are also a lot of guys that could have thrown 90 that didn't because they only threw 81. And they're like, this is fine. I'll be good. There are a lot more guys that could have gotten to that point with that 90 plus, and they weren't. So that was it. And I didn't want to be one of those guys. And I think that's going to be going forward. My advice to guys that are 81, 82 is it's like, I had absolutely no right to throw 90, 91. I had no right. And I did. And not after that much work. It was really only about 8 or 10 months of work because I was out of time. It was
But it was
year.
focused. It was focused
It was
work.
focused. It was
Yeah.
very focused, and very well structured work. Thanks to y'all, but also thanks to it just was a perfect storm. Like I had a chip on my
Thanks to
shoulder big
yourself,
time.
because
I had
you
a
put in the
big chip on
work.
my
Yeah, we can set a plan and we can build goals and build a plan and have everything perfectly structured and have everything perfectly chosen and everything lined up. But if the athlete doesn't do all of that work themselves, it's useless,
Like you remember when I was doing med ball throws? Like I would send you my med ball throws
Mhm.
because I had came up with that literally just completely on my own, like learning your body, learning what you want to do. Because I was like, I kind of feel like I need some help channeling my energy down the slope. I feel like I'm kind of leaking down the slope. So I was like, I'm gonna take this med ball and I'm gonna do walk-in throws every single day after the gym, and I'm gonna record them. I have in my Google Photos, I have so many gigabytes of videos, and I won't delete them. I refuse to, of throws of me throwing the med ball into the wall like over because it got to the point where it was like I had done things that were given, and I had done things that I'd seen on YouTube. But then I was like, I need this in my routine because I feel like I'm kind of leaking power, or I feel like I'm kind of losing energy go down the slope. It got to the point where I started kind of building my own knowledge about like when I want or like when we would talk or like when you would send me notes about a video you saw. Every time I saw that, I was a sponge. I soaked it up and I still remember all of them. And I saved those videos and I watched them so many times. So it really just it's to really get the success in that I had for my body, for my athleticism, which I am not athletic, you kind of have to have that perfect storm of desire and structure. I gotta plug my laptop in really.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, one of the things that I've kind of observed in pro ball that I got to see it this last spring that was I thought was super important that kind of, kind of speaks to that is yeah, every single guy has a routine, or every guy that's kind of on top of their stuff, although the majority of the guys, obviously pro ball is a higher level. Um, and a lot of those guys that were high level players, they all had structured routine and they stuck to that structured routine, but it didn't look the same for every guy. They had
Right.
kind of spent the time building that routine for themselves, finding the things that worked for them, and then cutting the fat of the things that didn't work for them. And then,
Absolutely.
yeah, and to kind of harp on what you were saying earlier is like all of those guys, those high level pros, every movement they make, they're paying attention to. There's no
Yep.
wasted reps. There's no wasted
None.
throws.
You're not throwing
Everything,
just for fun. And that was a big
yeah,
difference. You're not throwing just to get your arm. You're not
yeah.
throwing
There's thought.
to work on your changeup. Like every movement you make translates to your most important movement, which is your pitch when you're on the mound facing the bat. Every time you throw a baseball, you should do it with a purpose. There's why would you waste a throw?
Exactly.
There's no purpose in wasting a throw.
Exactly. Exactly. And then I think too, to kind of just to speak on that a little bit and make sure, guys understand kind of exactly what we're talking about and don't go too far with it is you also don't want to attribute a ton of emotion to that either, because you could take that way too far the other direction and now you're doming yourself up because you're thinking so hard and then attributing emotion to it. And then when things aren't going perfectly every single rep, all of a sudden you're getting yourself pissed off. You're doming yourself up, and next thing you know, you're all yipped up.
And it's just like the gym where it's like some days you may show up and you're gonna feel weak. Like you're gonna
Yeah,
show up
not gonna
and
feel
you're gonna
good.
do some
Yeah,
reps in the gym and you're gonna be like, God, this weight was lighter last week. It's the same thing. You're gonna be throwing from 90 feet out, or you're gonna be throwing and you're gonna miss. You're not gonna be
yeah,
dotting like you did a couple days ago. And that's fine. So it's really that's also the thing is kind of developing some humility, I guess is a word used, kind of developing some humility to be like, I am not perfect and I'm not going to be perfect every day, but I'm going to do as many reps as I can and as many considerate reps that I'm actively thinking of to where when I'm on the mound and I'm locked in, I'm ready.
yeah.
So it's just
Yeah.
basically having the mentality, having a mentality of being considerate with everything.
Yeah, exactly. That consistency. And I think what makes a big difference with that is like understanding what it is that you are gaining from all of those consistent, thoughtful reps is it's just the way I kind of look at it is it's all data, right? But
Right.
it's not more than data. It's not less than data, right? It's very important data and you're getting so much data from every movement and everything you feel. But at the end of the day, it's just data. And all it
Right.
is stuff that can teach you how to be better.
Right.
And if you take it as more than that, it's going to be to your detriment. But if you take it as less than that, it's also going to be to your detriment.
Just
Understand
can't
the
ignore it.
data. It's a very important data, but it's just data. It's not indicative of the end result or the end goal. It's what it is information that's going to help you get better.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that I wanted to talk about, and we'll try to hit on it before we kind of close up, is you had a little bit of history of injuries. You had the low back injury, the labrum injury, and kind of had to work through that. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that and kind of the process that you took with those injuries and what got you through it, and then got you to where you were kind of really peaking in your performance at the end of your career after those injuries.
So that kind of, and to not uh, kind of beat a dead horse here, but it kind of all came together at the same time. So I don't know if you remember, but the labrum and the back were basically together. Like they were basically at the same time within the same like 8 months. So it just kind of was really putting it simply, if that would have happened my freshman year, I would have quit. I wouldn't have played. I wouldn't have been able to recover from that. My back was at a point where it was basically I was working all day to be every day to be able to play for an hour Friday. Every day was hours of stretching, going to PT, uh, taking 12 Advil a day, which I would not recommend for your liver.
Yeah.
Um,
Don't do that, guys. Let's
don't
let's
do
not
that.
get to that point.
Um, Basically, it got to the point where I wanted what I wanted so bad that I didn't care about my back. I wasn't gonna let it get wet. So I got my MRI, my labrum was broken. But my labrum was way more minor. My back was very bad. I actually ended up having surgery on that 2 months after I stopped. So my labrum was just a partial tear. I told them, or we had an awesome doctor, um, I think, and basically I was just like, I won't pitch. I'll be good. Give me some cortisone, and I was good. But my back, on the other hand, was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I, for the listeners at home, I had two bulging discs in my back. It was my L5 and one of the other ones, one of the other L's. I'm not a doctor. But basically, they were bulging in the beginning of the year. And by the end of the year, the L5 was actually full. So playing made it worse. Would not recommend doing that unless it's your last year and you have nothing to lose. So basically, what happened was getting through that and the mentality needed and waking up every day in pain. Um, Waking up in pain. Not, I mean, there were times at practice where I literally couldn't walk. Like I told Kay, I was like, I can't. If you've had back pain, to the millions of listeners out there, if any of you have had back pain, I feel you. Um, I want you to know that you are hurt because a lot of the times when you tell someone, I literally cannot walk right now because of my back, they're like, why? So there were times where I literally couldn't walk, and I went and I'd go get an epidural shot, did nothing. So the thing that got me through it was having a ridiculously structured routine, having a routine every day where every day everyone knew my routine, or the pitchers and the coaches knew my routine. Show up, I would stretch for 30 minutes, and I was good to go. I would take some Advil, stretch for 30 minutes. We had an awesome trainer who helped me out very much. That was a part of my routine. I would go to him. He would take his elbow, get my back. He'd loosen up my hamstring, he'd loosen up my butt, and kind of get me cheek. And he would kind of get me right and ready to go. So the simple answer, the condensed answer, is having a very, very well structured program that you stick to, finding something that works and getting to it. Now, I was not able to throw for like 4 months, and I was able to come back and obviously hit a PR multiple times on the mound. That is just because the work that I put in the off season kind of, and that's just a testament to you lose it a little slower than you think. I didn't throw for an entire month straight, but I was throwing very lightly when I could. So having that very structured routine, getting myself right when I could, and preparing for the day, it was just like anything else. It was just what I needed to do to get to my end goal. And that's kind of the thing is that kind of keeps your mind off of kind of those negative thoughts. Like, because I'm very competitive. I'm sure if you're playing college baseball, you're very competitive as well. Like I'm getting passed up right now. Every day I spend not throwing and not improving my craft, I'm falling behind. Having that well-structured routine that is your craft, that is your day-to-day, kind of keeps you from those negative thoughts of saying that's like he did his thing, I did my thing today. My thing today was PT. So it's like kind of having your structured program to yourself and it's your baby that kind of keeps you from those negative thoughts. And then coming through it on a performance side, it was basically, I'm going to do whatever I need to do. It got to the point where I wanted to pitch so bad, and I had been so committed to the 90 or bust, and also obviously play, but that it was I was willing to do whatever I needed to do. So if that was stretched for 45 minutes, 7 days a week before and after, and then 45 minutes a day before and after I throw, and the day after I throw, I laid in bed all day. That's what I did. So that was kind of it. It was really just being well structured and committed to my program, which is not to beat a dead horse, but that's what I did. And that's what I would recommend everyone because it's very, very easy to get in a very negative mindset when you're injured. I've seen many, many guys get negative mindset when they're injured, and it basically kills their career. An injury that they could have absolutely come back from ends up killing their career because of the mindset. Because I'm falling behind or I'm never going to be the same again. So mentally, you give up. Even if physically you're still showing up every day, you're not as committed as you should be to your craft. Which, if your craft is PT that day, that's what you've got to do. Your craft is stretching. It doesn't have to be throwing if you're injured. You just have to do whatever you have to do to get back to the point of
100%, man. 100%. Yeah. That's definitely one of the big things that we harp on a lot in rehab and PT is like, it's bigger than just the physical aspect of it. There's such a big mental part of it, the mindset, and really making sure that guys are feeling good, they're feeling confident, and they're getting through because a lot of the struggles of PT and some of the biggest struggles are psychological. It's really hard
absolutely.
to be hurt mentally and so really fostering a culture in rehab and PT that lifts guys up and allows them to be confident.
We're waiting for you to come back. We can't
Yeah.
wait for you to be that. It's not that, oh, this guy took your spot, you're screwed now. It's that we're waiting for you to come back. Like,
Exactly.
we can't wait for you to come back and compete.
Yeah.
Versus this guy's doing so well, like he's gonna take your spot. Like you're good. You're good. We've got a closer. We've got a new starter. Like you're
Yeah.
good.
It's
Versus
about
can't
we
wait for
can't
you to
wait
come
for
back.
you to be back. And
Whether
then
that's
also the
true or not,
confidence.
even if that other guy has been lighting it up and he would have gotten the spot anyway, it's more so keeping your guys mentally there, mentally even. Because some guys aren't as mentally strong as others. Some guys need that support, need extra support. Some guys need extra support of like, dude, your spot is going to be waiting for you. Like you're not like no one's going and passing you by. You're injured. Your duty is to get better and kind of having that kind of be all over the culture. Not even like as guys get hurt, like I'm gonna have to miss 3 weeks. I'm gonna lose my spot. That is the last thing you want a guy to think about is that he's gonna lose his spot. Like you know what I mean? So kind of using our favorite word culture, where your focus is getting better versus I'm going to lose my spot now because I'm not practicing 3 weeks, or I have to miss 2 weeks, like I'm going to miss 6 games. So kind of just changing the thought process around does a lot of work.
100%. And even the guys that are historically mentally strong, rehab is a very hard process to go through. And so having that culture and having guys around you that lift you up and give you confidence, like, hey man, you're going to be back in no time. You're going to be even better than before.
You're going to be back strong.
That helps guys a lot.
Yep.
But yeah, man, I think it's a good spot to leave it off on. This was a blast, man, and it's been really great to talk and hear your insights and share that with our listeners. And I think a lot of guys are going to be able to find a lot of valuable insight in what we talked about today. So I appreciate you, man. It's been an absolute pleasure. And yeah,
Appreciate coming on. I really, it was fun. Love talking to you, Alex.
of course, man. It's always a pleasure, man. And for everybody out there listening, stay fearless. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Stay Fearless, the Fearless Sports Performance Podcast with all things baseball performance training. If you enjoyed this episode, please share, like, subscribe, comment, reach out to us, and keep the conversation going. You can check out our website at fearlesssportsperformance.weebly.com, and you can find us on Instagram at Fearless Sports Performance or on X at FearlessBSBL. Until next time, stay fearless.